Hey, I'm Brianna, and in today's video, I want to talk to you about the things I've learned in my 2+ years as an unsuccessful entrepreneur. Now, I'm saying that because I'm not where I want to be, but I think there's still value in what I have experienced, which is why I'm sharing it today. At this point in my entrepreneurship journey, I'm just reflecting and trying to figure out what's next. I mean, I thought I knew what was next, but I'm not sure what exactly to do next. And based on the things that I've learned in my experience, I think I'll know when the right thing is present. So let's get started by just kind of running down what I've done. We started with the blog, then I sold Mary Kay. I also started a podcast. I've written a book, and then this year I started a legitimate business. I mean, those other things were legitimate, but this one was like I have a business account and everything. So we're gonna go in chronological order and talk about what I've learned in my experience as an unsuccessful entrepreneur. Okay, starting with blogging. The main lesson I learned, which translates to everything else, is if it seems too hard when you're just thinking about it, it's going to be hard when you're trying to do it. I was originally blogging about my experiences being an Army spouse. It was just, I started the blog just as a way to share that experience. But when I was looking for a way to change my life, I knew blogging was an opportunity, and I learned about how I could maximize my blog, monetize my blog. So it was a natural translation. I already had fans and all that, so that's what I planned on doing. The problem was that the topic I was writing on wasn't really translatable. I used to spend a couple weeks on my blog posts. They were very thoughtful, transparent, authentic, and you just can't mass produce that. So that was what I was trying to do, and it wasn't working. I hired a blog coach, and she encouraged me to stick with the topic, even though I just felt like I really can't replicate this. And then I decided I would switch to more self-help, but that also didn't feel right. But I just kept pushing through and ultimately decided that it wasn't gonna work. I couldn't make it work. It would have been better for me to just maintain that blog and then start a new one on what I really wanted to talk about. But at the same time, I kind of feel like I wasn't really ready to give the self-help advice that I was kind of interested in at that time. So it is what it is. When I started to move on from the blog, which was December 2018, I was considering other ways I could make money, because after all, I thought that I was going to be making money pretty much immediately. No. I'm just under 900 days on this journey, and I'm still not making money. I have made some money, but just not anywhere near what I thought I would be bringing home, although I'm working from home, anywhere near what I thought I'd be generating at this point. So the next thing I thought about was real estate wholesaling. There's so much information out there, especially when you're just simply looking at entrepreneurship. A lot of people say it's a great way to get into real estate. It's easy way to make money, blah, blah, blah. So of course I was interested in it. What I did was I found an event near me and I went to it. I traveled like an hour and 15 minutes to get to this event, and then I was the only person there, and I got to ask all the questions. I made a connection with that couple, and I was like pretty much good to go, but I just couldn't really do it. I just was like, just not really, I don't know if am I supposed to be doing this? What I learned is that there's a difference in something being a good opportunity and the right opportunity. The right opportunity will have excitement and energy around it. So if you see an opportunity that looks good and you're like, okay, I can see myself doing this, but it doesn't move you in any way, then it's not really the opportunity for you. You need to feel excited before you get started. You might feel a little scared. You might be like, man, that's a lot of work, but there should be some excitement. And I just didn't have that for real estate wholesaling. After that, I started to sell Mary Kay. I signed up for Mary Kay because I knew I wanted to be a business coach, which actually I had discovered when I worked with the blogging coach. So I knew I wanted to be a business coach, and I figured this would be one way to get business experience that's not just behind a computer. I started off actually having some success with Mary Kay, but then I moved from North Carolina to St. Louis like 2 months in, and I just never really was able to pick back up the momentum because I didn't have any means of going to see people and making connections while trying to take care of my kid. But that's not the lesson here. The lesson here is that, well, it's kind of twofold. Your self-image will drive your success. And that applies to everything you do, but that's what I learned in Mary Kay. And not like from the Mary Kay people, but that's what I learned in that experience. I realized how I was not resilient to being rejected. I was very self-conscious about selling something. I just had so much anxiety about the basic functions of the job that I knew something was wrong, and that's how I discovered I had a low self-image. And from there, I began to work on my self-image so that I can be successful in other areas. The other part of that lesson is that you can't, okay, don't give people reasons not to buy something from you while you're trying to sell it. That seems pretty obvious, but we do this a lot. And now that I've been through that experience and learned about selling through Mary Kay, I really notice when other people do it. So that looks like no pressure. You really don't have to, don't feel like you have to buy anything. I mean, I do appreciate upfront, no pressure. You know, this is going to be an easy conversation, but when somebody's in the contemplation stage about your products, if you're giving them all these disclaimers and ways out, you're never going to succeed. And it's the same with coaching. So right now what I do is I tell somebody, I give them the information about the package, I let them know how it would suit them, and then they make a decision. I'm not saying, and you know, you might not even really need this unless I genuinely think that they won't need it, which we'll get to later. But I'm not saying all these things to give them a way out of paying their money to me. Let them deal with that. All you are there to do is tell them what products or service you have to offer. Period. Okay, so we parlay from the Mary Kay into, well, after that, I went back to my blog. I relaunched it, and with it, I started a podcast. I have kind of two lessons from that as well. I mean, I have a million lessons from all these things, but two main lessons from the podcast. One is you're gonna have to grow slow. It's okay. Don't expect to do big numbers right out the gate. I don't know why I thought that because my podcast was coming out at the same time as Office Ladies and Correct Opinions that I was supposed to like somehow run with them. I don't know. I didn't think necessarily that I would do as good as them, but I was like, okay, these podcasts haven't even launched and they have all these subscribers and reviews. I need to generate that same excitement about my project. Number one, ain't nobody asked for a podcast for military spouses from the angle I was coming from. So the idea that I would be wanting people to be excited before I even got started was just misguided. And I didn't have the audience that those groups have, but that's not even what I'm really talking about. One thing I kind of regret is doing things I felt other podcasts were doing, like asking for ratings and shares and stuff. I mean, you can do that, but at the same time, I was doing it because I felt like I was supposed to, as opposed to really feeling like that was the stage of the game I was at. You know, at that stage of the game, the name of the game was produce the podcast and get it posted on time. Not necessarily worrying about people having a huge audience. So it's kind of important to be mindful of where you are in your process. From the podcast, I also learned if you are doing interviews or anything that requires somebody else that's not being paid by you or directly benefiting from whatever it is, you have got to be careful and give yourself plenty of time. I don't know if it's a military spouse thing. I do think it kind of can be a military spouse thing, but I had so many people start to talk to me about being on the podcast and then just ghost. And I'd be like, hey, let me know when it's a good time. And they would just ghost, which would put me in a bad position and hurt my feelings. So now if there's something I'm gonna do, like I was thinking about another podcast where I would interview people, I'm going to be very careful and I'm going to make sure I am very explicit and come to those people very correct before planning on having them be a part of my project. What happened with my podcast is I kept putting it off because I couldn't get enough interviews, and then I finally decided that I was just gonna have to do it myself and use the few interviews I had sprinkled throughout the season. So be mindful of working with others who are not on your payroll. Other than that, after that, I wrote a book. Well, I wrote the book before all this, but I published the book in November 2019. I self-published with Kindle Direct Publishing. I haven't made a video about that, nor the podcast, and I really should. I really should make a video about Kindle Direct. I feel like I wrote an excellent book. I think it's very helpful. I think it's exactly what I would have needed going into the military lifestyle. So why didn't it sell? It didn't sell because of this. Marketing is everything. That's what I learned. That's what I'll take with me into anything I do. Marketing is everything. If nobody knows you made it, they cannot consume it. They cannot purchase it. So you really have to put as much effort into the marketing as you do into the production. I have learned that again in my current business. I think when I wrote the book, I was so insecure. And with the podcast, I was so insecure that I was afraid to ask people, afraid to make people aware of it. I kind of took it as, okay, if people don't like this, and that means that I don't make high quality work. But with the courses I've made through my current business, I'm like, okay, I know this is legit. I've actually gotten feedback from consumers and I know that they appreciate this and they find value in it. So it's not my work, it's the work I did not put into making sure everyone knew about my work. So marketing is everything. And don't fool yourself into thinking you just have to create something and people will show up. No, you have to create it and then put it in front of them and show them why it's worth their money, worth their time. Okay, now moving on to where I am today, which is Success Unlocked. Success Unlocked is a coaching and training business for Sister Locks consultants. I have a partner who is a Sister Locks consultant. My advice about this is be very thoughtful before entering an industry that you are not a part of. I'm not a Sister Locks consultant. I don't have Sister Locks. So that I can't really speak to those people. Yes, business coaching is business coaching, really, like the same principles apply. But in order to attract them to me as a business coach, I need to know what their pain points are. I need to know how they talk. I need to know how they think. And I just can't do that if I'm not a part of their industry. You can overcome this by having a partner who will basically synergize to bring those aspects you're missing by not being in the industry to the table. I didn't know before this experience how important it was to make sure your partner has the same vision as you and also has the same capacity as you. My partner, very busy. She's just now reduced her hours so that she can work on the business more, but she wasn't really able to contribute, and I thought I could just compensate for that, but I can't compensate for what she knows about the industry that I don't know. If you're selecting a partner for an industry you're not a part of, make sure that partner is ready to go to bring what you don't need. They need to be saying, okay, this is what the consultants want. This is what they want to hear. This is how they talk. They need to know that. The mistake I made was just not providing enough coaching. And again, it comes back to my self-image, just not feeling like I could take command. And if I could do it again, I would take command. I would say, okay, this is what I need from you. We would have more conversations. I would ask her for more of her time. I would pose more questions. I would just really make sure we're on the same page, because again, you can't overcompensate for what the other person doesn't bring when you're bringing two different things to the table. So that's all my advice. I mean, it's definitely not all my advice, but that's all my advice for this video. The last thing I'll say is that while I say that I'm unsuccessful, I have learned so much and I've grown so much. I think I was really starting from somewhat of a deficit in terms of how I viewed myself and the amount of healing I had to do, which I did not expect. The healing I had to do as an entrepreneur, as a person, before I could really be ready to play. So I don't have $70,000 yet, which is like my first goal, but I do have a lot of wisdom that I can share, and a lot of wisdom that's gonna put me in the right direction. I also wanna say that I am a purpose-driven entrepreneur, which means that it's important for me to be in alignment. I think that there are some people out there who could just push through all this stuff, but for me, I need to listen to what feels right, because I'm trying to be an entrepreneur who is entrepreneuring out of purpose instead of out of opportunity or out of profitability. So that's where I'm at. I will have more for you as I get further down this journey and have more perspectives, but that's what I have for you today. Thank you for watching.